Now, it is very difficult to stop being selfish, and the reason for that is that you were made to be selfish. So since we have this self-obsession that cannot be changed, we must consider how to be selfish, particularly in an artful way that blesses the world rather than destroys it. So as you look at selfishness from this perspective, you must go back to the origin. Where does it come from? The divine obsession of seeing yourself, me, at the center of the world. Where does this come from? Well, very simply, there is one being who not only looks at life this way, but actually has the right to look at life this way. And that is, of course, God. And since you were made in His likeness, you strive to look at the world the way He does, which is being at the center. He is the one from whom all things spring. He says, there is none like me. He says, I will love those who I love and hate those who I hate. Everything is about me. So we, as those who are made in His likeness, strive to move ourselves into this perspective. And remember, everything that exists, from trees to clouds to the sky to selfishness, only exists because of Him. Now, that doesn't mean we're using selfishness correctly. That would be like saying we use the Earth's resources correctly, which we don't. But nonetheless, all things that exist come from Him. There is nothing new under the sun. So this perspective of me being at the center of the world, that only exists in our understanding because it first existed in God. And we're simply misusing what He entrusted us with, this selfishness. So once we understand the divine obsession, it comes from God, and we strive to embody that, we have to plug in the missing piece, which is the divine union. When God is selfish, He is not selfish in the way that we are. When He wants something, He encapsulates it, and what does He do? He doesn't put it on His shelf and show everybody how amazing He is by this possession that He has. He makes it a part of Him. It's a passionate union. He melds this person, this soul that He wants, melds it into His very being. And remember, He's selfish. He loves Himself more than anything else. So if you become part of His being, He loves you the way He loves Himself. So that old adage of love your neighbor as you love yourself isn't simply a quaint little phrase. It's actually an instruction on how to be selfish in the way that God is. So this passionate union melding into oneness is what allows God to love other things, His own creations, as He loves Himself, as He takes them into His person. So that brings us to you. You are not God, but you have His obsessive, selfish nature, and you also have His drive to unite, to bring things in. So this likeness that you have, it's important to distinguish that you're not like God. You're not equal with Him. You have His likeness, but if you try to be like God, which is what we started doing in the Garden of Eden, you'll always find that out of reach. You can't touch, as Michelangelo so eloquently displayed, the like nature of God and man will never be an equal sign. Instead, you are of a different nature, much like a model of clay, God being the living being and you being the model of clay. You're a different nature altogether, but you have some things that are very similar. The likeness of God. And we see that in this perspective. Me and the world around me. God's perspective is that the entire created universe and the entire spiritual universe revolves around Him, and He has the right to have that perspective. You want to grow into that, but you can't even see the whole universe. So what do you have to start with? Well, your world, which is family and friends and money and clothes and cars and possessions and all these things that are around, you want to grow into this selfish perspective that God perfectly embodies. But remember, you're not going to be able to do it like Him. You'll simply be able to do your selfishness in his likeness. So you're going to have to do it your own way with this passionate union of bringing things in. And the more you unite and meld things into your being and love them as you love yourself because they're part of you, the more you embody his likeness in this glorious nature of selfishness. And seeing the world, an ever-expanding world to you, you can always know more people, you can always have more money, you can always have more possessions, and you can keep melding that world through a passionate love into your person and use selfishness in the way that God does more and more and more without ever fully attaining who he is and the way he is selfish. So, be selfish and grow all things into the divine likeness.